Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer-Amosi-Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
Or MOTS! This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion advised.
Hello, everyone. I am Steven Ormosi, and I'm here with a special Motskers interview with my good buddy and film aficionado, Morgan Goldin.
Hi.
And just to give you a little rundown on Morgan's creds, he's a filmmaker based out of New York. He's been working for the last 10 years or so in New York, and he runs a podcast called Amusing Ourselves to Death with his co-host, Evelyn Kalubi, and they talk about minority issues in pop culture. So I figured it would be a good thing to have him on to talk a little bit about the Oscars controversy, since he can lend a little bit of insight into that venue.
I'll do what I can.
And just one other thing I wanted to mention, he also writes for a magazine called Mary Magazine, which he has described as a high-end cannabis magazine, which sounds actually pretty damn cool.
Think Esquire meets High Times.
Excellent. So we're going to just start off talking about the Oscars. There were a bunch of white people that were nominated for Oscars this season.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and it caused a little bit of a stir in the film world. So we're going to talk a little bit about that controversy that's going on, and I kind of want to talk to you about that. So when you first heard about it, I guess, what were your initial thoughts on it?
I guess I was disappointed, but not surprised. I think a lot of people are really picking up on it because it's the second year in a row that it's happened.
Right.
And it just seems like, is this the start of an upsetting trend? Like, we seem to be regressing, because when it happened last year, that was the first time in maybe, I might be getting this wrong, but something like 20 years where that was the case.
Yeah.
And now that have it happened 2 years in a row, a lot of people are rightfully asking, like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what's up with this?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a, and I talked about this with the regular Lost Signals crew a little bit. It seems like there is kind of two issues here, and it seems like it's one that minority actors are not getting nominated for these things, even though they probably rightfully deserve to be up there with the upper echelon of actors in our country, or around the world. And two, there's not as many parts for those types of actors. A lot of movies just come with the find a white actor attached to this and attach him or her to this movie. So what do you think about kind of the way that's going? Do you think that's accurate?
To an extent. I wouldn't say that there aren't enough parts. There are parts. There are great parts, but they're just not being recognized by the overall voting body of the Academy. Say, take a performance like Samuel L. Jackson in The Hateful Eight. Now, that's a movie that I have really mixed feelings about, but one thing I felt was that this is probably one of his best characters that he created, and I really thought he was going to be a shoo-in for maybe a supporting nom.
Right.
And to see that not happen, I was like, well, why not? I wonder, was it too much for a certain demographic of the voting body? Yeah,
I mean, in that film, there was that whole scene with him where he's describing being filleted by the guy's son, and when I see something like that, first of all, that's a very Tarantino type scene,
right?
But I kind of wonder if that's maybe what put him over the edge of not really people don't want to nominate somebody that's talking about getting blown on screen by some Southern general's son. I don't know, maybe that's something that went into those thoughts.
But I guess by the same token, a couple years ago, for the movie Django Unchained, he did get the nomination for that.
True.
And he also did an amazing job as Stephen, who was Candy Calvin's right-hand man.
Yeah.
But I guess that role was a little bit more simplistic than the one he's playing here, which is a black Union officer who's trying to, really navigate the terrain of a post-Civil War United States.
Right.
And there were a lot of layers to that performance. He does goad a Southern general into shooting at him so he could justifiably murder him. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's like your sympathies kind of switch from him, and after you hear that story, you feel uncomfortable, and rightfully feel uncomfortable towards that character.
Well, I would say that was the point of kind of that scene.
Right.
But I guess moving on to some other actors. Who were some other actors that you thought should have been nominated in I guess either supporting or main actor?
Another one that I felt was overlooked was Idris Elba in Beasts of No Nation, which is a great film. From the director of the first season of True Detective, Cary Joji Fukunaga. And he not only directed Beasts of No Nation, he wrote, he edited, he shot. He pretty much was like a one-man band behind this movie. And his style is just one that keeps on evolving and is like a really filmmaker that I'm kind of getting more and more impressed with each and every piece that he comes out with. But I felt, particularly in that, the cast really shined. Like, even besides Idris Elba, there was this 12-year-old boy who, unfortunately, his name I'm blanking on, but did a phenomenal job, who I felt should have been recognized for something. But again, maybe that movie, because it was a Netflix movie, maybe there was some politics at play. Like, people looked at it probably like, oh, it's a glorified TV movie. Why the hell would we nominate this?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to mention. That didn't get a full theatrical release, right?
It got limited. It was released on Netflix first, and a couple theaters in NYC played it, but a major change boycotted it. And I'm sure there were some like union heads who were probably like had a part to play in the Academy, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't recognize this for anything, which is unfortunate because I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I still have to check it out. Actually, it's been on my Netflix queue since it came out. Actually, since before it came out, I was looking forward to it, and then just got busy or whatever. But
there's just too much good stuff out there.
Exactly. There is a lot of good stuff out there especially this year, and there always is, but that one I'm definitely going to watch. Did you see Straight Outta Compton?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I am definitely going to try to see that as soon as possible, but I definitely I wanted to see it, but like you say, for whatever reason it kind of just other stuff comes up.
Right.
But I do need to check that one out.
All right. Well,
but the funny thing about that is that the only nomination it did score was for the 2 white screenwriters of that movie.
Jeez, I didn't even know that.
It got an original screenplay nomination for the 2 white writers involved. So it's like they had to really almost Key and Peele sketch, find a way to work around it to make it acceptable.
It really
else.
is. I think there was like I don't know what it was, like a crack thing or like some kind of video online about a guy who was part of like a video a show, an online show, and he just walks in with an Oscar in his hand and says like, "Hey guys, I just got mauled by a bear and I'm white." and they gave me this Oscar. Well,
that seems to be the front runner for this year. So we'll see if that's all you need now.
I don't know. I would agree. Actually, I wanted to get back to the idea of not having the roles per se, like not having as many roles. And I know you say you don't particularly agree with that. To
an extent.
Would you say...
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, go on.
There is some validity, but I think it's not to say that the roles aren't out there. The roles are out there, but they're still not being meted out proportionally for performers of color.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask. Would you say, like, for these huge budget movies, would you say that that's more the case than in, like, smaller films, or do you think it's pretty much even?
No, because with the different methods now of filmmaking, there are a variety of ways that people are now making the work for themselves.
Yeah.
Like a great movie I saw this past year, which there's no way in hell it would ever would have been nominated for anything, but it's a fantastic piece of work that I think people are really going to watch down the line. It's a movie called Tangerine. Right. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a movie about these 2 sex trans workers in L.A., shot on an iPhone, but it's one of the funniest, breeziest, just amazing movies that came out this year. Like, you honestly, you go in, oh, this was shot in an iPhone 5, but after 5 minutes, you don't even care. It's just beautifully well done. It just looks like any other piece of digital cinema. And they were non-professionals, the 2 leads of that, Maya Taylor and Kiki Rodriguez, who worked with the writer and director of it to really develop these characters and this story. Nice. And it's just, you've never seen anything like it on screen. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just tragedy porn. Like, they're funny, they're sad, but they're alive. They're 3-dimensional characters. And you just wish that more of that was presented out there.
Yeah, I really well, that's the thing that I really love about, I guess, art in general, and specifically filmmaking. There's so much you can do, and there's so much that hasn't been explored. And with the way the technology's going, you can really get into all that stuff and doing it for no budget. So if you, I don't know, that's probably a whole different topic. Mm-hmm. But I like that you can just take a bunch of people and go and make a movie. If you're really willing to put in the work for it and make it something awesome. Actually, you did mention that movie to me, Tangerine. last time I saw you, and I meant to go find it, and I didn't
Also
have
on
time
Netflix. They just
Yeah?
I think they added it very recently, so do
Nice.
yourself a favor, watch that.
Nice. I'm gonna check it out. I gotta just make a list and just go through all these things.
I'd be happy to provide that.
Absolutely. So I don't know. Is there anything specific that you wanted to get off your chest about this whole thing, or anything you wanted to talk about that I didn't mention?
Well, touching on that we were just speaking about Hollywood system versus indies, with respect to the Oscars, is that to run an Oscar campaign, you kind of need a big studio push behind you. Like running for an Oscar campaign is almost a presidential campaign.
Right.
You spend so much of the advertising budget on putting the for your consideration ads out, getting the screeners out, and a lot of times that takes up more money than the movie even costs to make and produce. So a lot of these indies will not get the recognition just because of that fact.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to ask you about whether or not you thought that those roles were there in those huge budget movies, because the reason that they get Oscars, for the most part, obviously there's dark horses in every year, but like the reason that they get Oscars is because they pay the money to get the Oscars.
Right.
You'll have a Bernie Sanders in there every once in a while who gets them, crowdfunds all his, all his movie money, but for the most part, it's huge, but huge studios that are able to spend the money to get the support behind them that they need.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that we could probably talk about this controversy and everything surrounding it, all the moving parts and all that type of stuff until, well, people have been talking about it for months already.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you want to say anything else about it, or do you want to move on to talking about some of the movies that actually were nominated for Oscars? Or
Yeah, I guess one final point I would bring up is that it just seems to be, how to phrase this, a circuitous club that the Oscars are. Because the only way, the one that picks the nominees is a voting body. The only way you get into this body is if you are nominated for Oscars. And the way the voting body is comprised of now, it is over 90% white, over 70% male, and over 50% above the age of 60. Mm-hmm. So when you already have all that demographic, they're already going to skew a certain way. So even if a crowd pleaser like Straight Outta Compton gets a lot of box office, gets a lot of critical acclaim, the people that are the decision maker for the Oscar aren't necessarily going to see it.
Right.
They will flat out admit they don't watch everything that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of biting them in the ass because 2 years in a row you kind of had this very lily white list of nominees.
yeah, well, I mean, for years you look at movies and you say, oh, that's Oscar bait, because it's geared towards probably white people that are over 50 years old, like a lot of times. Like,
Right.
it's these Bridge of Spies type movies, or like
A Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah.
Which, in all fairness, I forget what comic said this, but how is the Academy going to nominate a movie called Brooklyn? It has no black people for Best Picture, which is pretty much just the biggest fuck you to Spike Lee that is probably possible.
I actually really like Brooklyn, but
It's not a bad
but you're
movie.
absolutely
it's
right.
not a bad movie. Just any other year, any other time, it's like,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, you were 100% correct about
Fine
that.
movie. It's a fine movie.
I actually wanted to. You reminded me. I wanted to mention the president. I think she's the president of the Academy.
Cheryl Boone Isaacs.
Yeah, has said that she's a black woman herself, and she has said that she wants to make changes, and she's disappointed in how this stuff is shaking out. Do you know a little bit more about that than I do, perhaps? Or
To her
I'm sure you
credit,
do.
she has implemented that. She's opened up the voting body to a wider number of people to be inducted into it.
Yeah.
And she's kind of instituted this, I guess, quote-unquote term limit that
Right.
wasn't in place before, because once you're in the Academy, you're in there for life. So there's, not to discredit filmmakers who've made work in the 60s and 70s and haven't had much of an output, but they're still the deciding factor in it, even though they're not currently active in the industry. So she's making an important step to making sure that, I guess, a fresh face is present making these decisions.
Yeah.
She's created a lot of workshops and done a lot of outreach. So for her part, she's really putting in the legwork.
Yeah,
We'll see what comes up of it in the future.
That's good to hear. Hopefully, we'll see some changes next. I'm guessing there will be changes next year, just based on.
They're not going to release that shit until they probably approve.
Yeah,
a
exactly.
future list.
Exactly.
I guess one more thing too I want to say is
Yeah.
that people who criticize the people criticizing this as if like, oh, it's not an Academy issue, it's an industry issue. Well, the Academy is kind of the face of the industry.
Right.
Like when people make these complaints around the year, nobody listens. And you make it around Oscar time, you're like, well, don't blame the awards. They're only doing what movies are out there. It's like, well, the Academy's the face of it.
Yeah.
They're like kind of like
People
it should be directed at that.
Exactly. People make movies to get Oscars, like that's
Right.
and vice versa. The Oscars are there to make the movies, a big epic thing once every year at the end of the movie year. So it kind of just feeds itself. You're right. It's kind of
Well, yeah, but like a lot of cultural thinkers make these claims for a larger sense of diversity in the media. Like you see that every year with pilot season where, one network had nothing but white people with TV shows. And it's like, this is 2016. Like, how is this still the case? It's the same thing with movies, too. And hopefully, like, it puts the studios at notice to, like, act right.
Right.
There's more stories to tell.
Right. And
There's more people to play them.
I think that we're going to start finding that the networks that actually give a voice to everyone are going to start seeing some real uptick in their viewing populace. Well, Netflix is just killing it, but they put out Master of None, the Aziz Ansari show, and like he head on talks about that in that show. And he does it really well.
Exactly. You see that from a casting side, like what they're looking for in certain types. Working in film, one thing that's always struck me, especially in college, is when you see a screenplay, any character is automatically assumed white. Like, meet Bill. 20-something, unemployed, lives at home. It's like, of course it's going to be a white guy. But any other character, they will always have to put the preface of an adjective of what they are.
Yeah.
So it's like even on a script level, a basic script level, not even that's greenlit to be made, it's still automatically assumed white is the default.
Right.
Before you go into...
And exactly. If you don't make it clear what, race the person is, they'll be white when it comes time to cast.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not in nearly as much of the industry as you are, but like I've read scripts and stuff like that, and I've seen that on scripts.
You still have it happening. There's a British TV movie where Joseph Fiennes is going to play Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
which is like
that's so ridiculous.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's insane. But all right, let's move to the actual nominations. I was prepping to talk about Best Pictures, but if you want to move into some of the other categories, we can definitely talk about that too.
I could spend all night talking about just this lack of diversity. And even besides performance of color for the acting nominations, I do want to talk about the movies too, but I guess really quickly. Other categories for best cinematography, a woman has never been nominated. Like not let alone one, but not even on the nomination level.
Wow.
And then you have directors of color. You have maybe one Asian and two Latinos who have won, and that one Asian is Ang Lee, who, in all fairness, won twice. And then you had Alfonso Cuarón and Alejandro González Iñárritu, who's largely the frontrunner to win again.
Yeah. He might win two in a row.
He might win it,
so.
which would be feat in and of itself. And then one woman, which is Catherine Bigelow for Best Director. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in other categories besides Best Actor, Best Actress,
right.
So on and so forth.
Of course. And the controversy this year has been mainly a race thing, but it's also a gender issue as well.
Oh, absolutely.
As you just pointed out and mentioned. So that could be a whole other podcast in and of itself.
Maybe we'll revisit it once the Oscars air, and then we'll see how right or wrong we were in these predictions.
Absolutely. But yeah, I do think that Revenant's probably going to win. We were talking about this when we were speaking, when me and the other guys from the Lost Signals crew were talking about the Oscars, and we kind of agreed that we think the Revenant's going to win. Basically, it's Leonardo DiCaprio's turn, pretty much. And it was an amazing movie too. But I honestly think that Leonardo DiCaprio has had better roles.
Yeah.
And I thought that Tom Hardy did a better job in this movie than he did.
I agree. I absolutely agree 100%.
Yeah.
Which is funny that to kind of show you the overall worthlessness of the Oscars, it kind of goes, whose turn is it, rather than the best role.
Right, exactly. So Leo's been nominated however many, what is this, his third or fourth?
Maybe it might be third. Off the top of my head, I know he was nominated for Wolf of Wall Street and The Aviator. But he was also nominated for Best Supporting with What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Yeah.
And he might have been nominated for Blood Diamond, but I don't remember that off the top of my head.
That was a really good movie.
He's had quite a few nods. It would be his turn.
Yeah.
But in that category, I guess for Best Actor, I feel like my main pick would be Michael Fassbender and Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Which I thought he did an amazing
I still haven't seen that one yet, but I hear he's... I mean, I love Michael Fassbender and pretty much everything he does, so I would love to see that one. I'll probably check it out pretty soon, actually.
What's amazing, he doesn't do a Steve Jobs impression. He doesn't alter his voice or his look, but he locks down the mannerisms, and you don't question it for a second. You feel like you are just watching it without him having to do a sketch impression of it.
Right.
And he just fully embodies that character and makes him really compelling to watch because he's on screen for like 85-90% of the movie, too.
Yeah. Well, that one's all based around him at like 3 different talks that he gave,
right?
Yeah,
it's not even like a proper biopic. It's really just these snapshots of his life, kind of like what the what's going on in the events in terms of like his family relationships, his company relationships through these showcases.
Yeah.
Which I really think is what more biopics should adopt rather than trying to fully encompass a life
Right.
in 2 hours. Because A, you're going to invariably leave something out, and B, you're going to simplify the hell out of it where it's just sanded down and watered down to be like meaningless.
Absolutely. So, who else is on the docket for Best Actor? Anybody else up there that you think is worth mentioning? Or like,
Who are the? I know Bryan Cranston is nominated for Trumbo.
that's right.
Which I wasn't crazy about that movie. He does a fine job. Best Actor, I don't think so. But a part of me wants him to win, so he's that much closer to an EGOT. He's already got 2. I think he's got 2 of them. So one more, he's that much closer away. So honestly, that would be my whole vote for him to win, just to give the man an EGOT.
Well, he probably needs a Grammy, right?
Yeah. Well, his spoken word album is getting a lot of press.
That'd be great.
Who else is nominated? Oh, the kid who won last year, Eddie Redmayne, for The Danish Girl, which I haven't seen. Which I haven't seen. But I know he did win last year for Theory of Everything. Oh, who's the 5th one? Somebody who's
not going to win.
The Bernie Sanders of the Best Actor.
Poor guy. I'm sure he turned in a great performance. So about I guess we can go to. Well, unless you have, I haven't seen a lot of the movies that the best actresses are pulled from, so I wasn't gonna go to that. But I don't know if you have or not. It was just, I think it was like the Danish Girl and like.
Sorry to go back. I think it's Matt Damon for The Martian.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like,
he shouldn't win.
Come on,
for
that role.
Yeah,
cocky scientist in space.
I mean, whatever. I really like that movie, but
That movie's, I haven't seen that movie. I guess I shouldn't talk shit about it, but I guess, I don't know. I want to check it out, but I'm not like dying to see it. I'm sure it's an entertaining, fine movie, but really like Best Actor.
Well, I love the book, and then I saw the movie, but like it's pretty much a 2-hour long, promo for NASA, which awesome. Good.
It's not the worst thing in the world.
Get more people into NASA. That'd be great.
Yeah, let's really take NASA down a peg, because that's one organization that's really begging. I mean, hey, you know what? I hear from I have friends that are teachers, and they've taken their kids to see it because it makes science look cool. And anything that does that is a completely worthwhile endeavor, so.
Exactly. At least it's not that stupid Benghazi movie that Michael Bay's doing.
Right. Which I think is already quickly forgotten.
Did that come out already?
I think so. I think it was released in the city, but I don't know if it's going to get. Probably get widely. Actually, I don't know what the plan is for the rollout.
Definitely get wide release.
Yeah, like
for sure.
Oh, Michael Bay's indie movie.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. Well, let's. I guess I feel really bad saying this. I probably shouldn't be talking as though I'm authority on anything Oscars when I haven't seen most of the films that people are nominated for Best Actress in.
Hey, you're not the voting body.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they probably haven't seen most of them either. So.
You're in the same boat with them. They haven't seen everything either. They just like, oh, I like Cate Blanchett.
Yeah,
Here
exactly.
we go.
Just put her in there. It's fine. I'll vote for her.
I will say for Best Actress, I forgot to mention this in the earlier segment, I felt Teyana Paris in Spike Lee's Chirac should have been nominated. She did such an amazing performance in that movie, which is really underrated.
Nice.
And if you're a fan of Beyonce's Formation, I think she took a lot of her aesthetic and visual cues from that movie.
Really?
So she should really talk to Spike Lee.
Maybe she did.
Maybe she did.
All right. Cool. Let's.
Well, of the ones you did see, which ones did you feel stand out? Because a lot of them tie into the movies you saw. And I don't know if you're going to keep this in, because this is fourth wall breaking.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
Saoirse Ronan from Brooklyn is nominated.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Who else?
I thought she did a great job. Oh,
she was amazing in Brooklyn.
Was from The Room.
Yeah, Brie Larson as well.
Brie Larson. Actually, I think Brie Larson should win.
This is a pretty strong category.
I didn't see the
Carol.
I didn't see Carol. I didn't see Joy, and I didn't see the what was the other one? The Danish Girl.
Oh, is Alicia Vikander for Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress?
She might be Best Supporting, actually. But I didn't see any of those 3 movies. I know they got a lot of, not a lot, but like I know they got nods as well.
I didn't see Joy.
Nominations, that is.
I did see Carol, and I loved Carol. Carol actually made my favorite movie of last year.
Wow.
And I'm really surprised out of all the other nominations it got, it didn't get a Best Picture one as well.
Wow. And
it's a story of a lesbian romance in the 1950s. And I'm really surprised that didn't get that Best Picture nomination. But I felt every level, the acting, the photography, the music by Carter Burwell, just an incredible, incredible experience.
So would you give her the Best Actress in that category? Or would you...
As much as I love that movie, she does a phenomenal job. I think I would give it to Brie Larson or Saoirse Ronan. Honestly, if either two of those, I'd be pretty happy.
I agree. Those are basically the 2 that I saw, and both of them did incredible jobs.
Mm-hmm. I think Best Actress is like the strongest category among the acting nominations.
Yeah. I would having now spoken about it a little bit. I would probably agree. I don't know. Are there any supporting that you want to give shout outs to?
Tom Hardy in The Revenant.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'll take supporting actor Tom Hardy. You know what? He can win all the supporting.
Boy, what a year for him! But in that movie, he is an antagonist who you really actually sympathize with if you think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't make an illogical villain decision just for the sake of it.
Right.
But everything he does has a purpose, has a motive, and he's just driven by, like, pure survival instinct. Like, he even has that line, what do you mean leave the pelts? Life? What life? I need to make money. There's no life without money.
Yeah.
And it's like, you get it. This man, this uneducated fur trader who just has a very strict code of what he needs to do.
Right. He needs that to make money. He actually, I like him better than everybody else that was like, hey, we need to get this guy who has like is completely broken back. Like, are you crazy? Like, listen, Leo, I'm sure you're a great guy.
Yeah, he tries to mercy. It's like, okay, killing the son is fucked up, but it's like with everything going on in his circumstances, you're being chased by a variety of villains. He's there with him for a full day. It's like, just put him out of his misery.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no way that he thought he was going to survive anyway.
Right?
Like,
yeah, he was a very sympathetic character. And the fact that if you were in his place, you would probably make the exact same decisions says a lot. I was thinking about it like, yeah.
Yeah, no,
like,
you're right, Tom. You're right, Tom Hardy.
But he did a great job.
Yeah, he really did.
I just love that reaction, too, like, just to show you what a grizzled badass he is. Minor spoiler alert, at the end fight, when Leo just chops his fingers off with the axe, at least he's like, God damn it. The same way someone says when they stub their toe, it's like, yep, this is my life now. Right. Like, not even freaking the fuck out.
Well, now I don't have fingers.
Yeah, just a perfectly calibrated response for all the life experience he's had. I was just like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, he
was really enjoyable to watch.
All the way through that movie was pretty intense and great, and Tom Hardy was a big reason that it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Best Pictures. What was your favorite film that was nominated for Best Picture?
My favorite film that was nominated,
not the one you thought was going to win, not the one you think's going to win, or not the one that like you think is the best quote unquote film, but like which one did you enjoy the most watching?
Honestly, I would say The Big Short.
Yeah,
Big Short juggled such a variety of tones, and it's almost like, who stuck this peanut butter documentary goodness in my chocolate comedy film?
Exactly. I would completely agree, and I've been telling people this since I saw that movie. I've been like, hey, you know who directed this movie? I'll give you 1,000 guesses. You'll never get it, because it's the same guy that did like Anchorman. He did Anchorman and Step Brothers and Talladega Nights. Yeah,
The Other Guys.
Exactly.
Which, if you saw The Other Guys, the ending graphics, it's kind of like this kind of obsession he's had with the financial collapse. And by the way, the guy we're talking about is Adam McKay.
And after, yes, I couldn't remember his name, so I was just going to not say it. Thank you, Morgan, for setting me straight.
Oh, you're very welcome.
But you know, I kind of, after you learn that, you kind of are like, oh yeah, that kind of makes a little sense. Like it's got a really good sense of timing and like comedic timing and just kind of irony, you know, about the characters. And I thought that Steve Carell did a bang up job in that movie.
Yeah, I think he got a Best Supporting nom, and well deserved too.
Oh yeah, did Christian Bale got a nomination?
Yeah,
right?
he's also at Best Supporting.
Okay.
Which, as much as I like Christian Bale, as much as I like the movie, I don't know. Like, he did a good job, but I don't know if it's like enough to be the top supporting performance.
I wouldn't put him into Oscar territory for that one. But for Steve Carell, I certainly would. I think he did an amazing job. I think my favorite movie this season was Mad Max, which I might have mentioned earlier. I don't remember, or it might have been in our conversation before we started. But I love that movie. I think it was my favorite action movie ever. I'm just gonna say that. And I think I've said it before on the podcast too. But like,
maybe you should let that little simmer a little bit.
No.
Give it 2
I
years.
let it simmer. let it simmer.
Okay. Yes.
I was like,
May?
I was like, all right, Die Hard, does it really beat Die Hard? And I think it does.
Okay. I don't know. Like, I love that movie too. Don't get me wrong. I think it's the best action movie of the year. I think it's one of the best action movies of the past decade.
Yeah.
But to say outright, I don't know. I like to let things really. I would revisit it in 5 years. Not to say that it'll diminish, but I guess when you stack it against everything else, even in the Mad Max canon.
You're right. I should think about it again. Although,
but that doesn't diminish the accomplishments.
I love I love the other Mad Max movies, but I think this is my favorite hands down. And like, Fury Road's just so good. It's just so. The reason that I say it's my favorite action movie, I think, is because the action never stops the entire time. It's just so, it just picks you up, puts you into it, and just, you can't, I basically didn't stop grinning the entire time the movie was on, you know? Like, that's the best way I can describe it.
It's relentless. I think Charlize Theron should have been nominated for Best Actress for that role.
Yeah, I do not disagree with that.
No, it's a great piece of filmmaking. And I think the best thing about Mad Max Fury Road is that for most of the year, I'm just like, I'm so sick of these reboots and remakes and sequels. Why can't we get some new shit? And this movie comes out, I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah, exactly.
If they were all like this, I would stop having complaints. But you'll have this one amazing piece in the field of crap.
That gives like everybody else a reason to keep going. You're like,
Right.
no, kill them.
Yeah. I mean, my summer was done after that. I was like, okay, this comes out, Memorial Day weekend? After that's like, don't need to see anything else.
Exactly. Well, you don't want to see Transformers 8?
I think another positive shift with Mad Max, and I think with the new Star Wars movie, which I haven't seen yet, but from what I hear, both employ a lot of practice.
Yes.
Where they really limit the use of CGI only when it's absolutely necessary. So I hope that Hollywood takes a signal that people are kind of really tired of this kind of plastic sheen that CGI offers and want to see actual stunt work and real props and shit blowing up for real and will make worthwhile work that doesn't over-rely on CGI.
And I will say that Star Wars, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And yes, the practical effects were awesome. And it was... It's basically like a direct sequel reboot because it's very derivative of New Hope.
I know. That's kind of what's keeping me from seeing it, which I'm just like, anyways, I haven't seen it. I can't really.
But what I will say is that it made me feel the same way I felt when I watched New Hope for the first time when I was a kid. And that's the best thing I can say about any Star Wars movie because especially after the prequels that never for 1 second made me feel like I was watching a Star Wars movie, you know, like, so I don't know. But anyway, there are a bunch of other films on the list here.
So you think your personal favorite's Mad Max? Mine is Big Short.
Right. So as far as artistry goes, or you know, like the quote unquote film industry, or what you think is like Oscar worthy, I guess. Do you think it's different? Do you think that's a different category for you, or would you say that Big Short embodies all of that? I mean, I think Big Short embodies all of that too, but do you think that was the one that was most geared to an Oscar, I guess?
I guess not really. But even the movies that are mostly geared towards trying to get an Oscar rarely come up.
That's true.
Like, you can't... I think Alfonso Cuarón said this in Making Children of Men. Like, you can't set out to make a masterpiece. Like, if you have in your head, like, this is going to be gold, this is so important, everything I'm doing, that you just... I don't know. You kind of miss the forest for the trees, and you kind of close yourself off to finding all the little details and nuances that could really elevate your work. I guess my thing with The Big Short, and I think it does actually stand a good chance of winning. It probably won't, but if it won, I wouldn't be 100% surprised, is that it's informative, it's entertaining, and it juggles a variety of tones. Like, watching it, you are laughing your ass off 1 second, and then you are heartbroken and on the verge of tears the next. And it could switch effortlessly between the two. It doesn't feel so jarring when it does that.
Yeah.
The way it's put together, it's not even put together like a shiny, squeaky picture. Like, it's a lot of handheld camera work, a lot of freeze frames. But it kind of enhances the intensity of what the characters are going for. You kind of feel this, like, frazzled, jangled energy going on.
Yeah.
And all the direct addresses, all the breaks of the fourth wall, it's an essay film, kind of. Like, this is shit
Right.
Godard was doing in the 60s, where we just have a character look at camera and be like, and now I'm going to talk about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
It's like he does that constantly in this one, too. And it doesn't feel like a thumb sticking out. Like, it's so a part of a piece. And to be able to do that, do it effortlessly. I've learned more about the financial collapse with this movie than probably since it happened the past, like, 7 years of it.
Yeah, well, I would completely agree. I knew a little bit about it before I watched this. I actually knew probably more than the average person, I guess, but certainly not as much as anybody who's involved in finance or, you know, any of that stuff. But and not to say that I do now, but watching this movie taught me about so many of these different, like, all these terms, what they mean, how the system works, how something that's built entirely on, like, you know, a House of Cards model could just fall apart without anybody realizing it. And, like, that's the craziest thing about all that stuff that happened. There was almost nobody that realized what was going on with it, which is why I love that movie, because they, you know, were like, here's where the rug got pulled out from under everybody's feet. And here's why. Comedically, yeah, you're right. There are moments of, like, complete heartbreak, and there are moments of just laugh out loud, you know, comedy.
And intentionally so.
Right.
Like, it's able to mine, like, a lot of pathos in both ways in that. It has the righteous anger of, like, a good 70s movie. Like, just
Yeah.
the right kind of, like, political
Yeah.
anger edge to it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm rooting for it. It probably will be... I think the two big ones are Revenant or Spotlight. And I like both those movies. So if any one of those took it, I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Either Revenant or Spotlight as kind of maybe a little bit of a dark horse, but that would be the second one that I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, probably a Big Short and maybe Room are in that next tier down after that for, possible wins.
I liked Room. I don't think it's going to take it.
Yeah.
At least in Big Best Picture. It might be an upset and get Best Director. And I think that would be a well-deserved one for Lenny Abramson, too. For working in such a cramped space, he would find the right angles and compositions so you weren't bored being trapped in the room for like the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, there was always a freshness to the approach that was probably really difficult to find. So he might get Best Director. Oh, who am I kidding? It's going to go to Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu.
Yeah, you're probably right. But,
Which I wouldn't be upset with either.
Exactly. Either way it goes, it's going to be, it'll be fine,
Just sometimes the answer's so obvious, you're like, all right, just give it to them already, even though they do great work.
Yeah.
Like, I guess an actress I feel that way about is Meryl Streep, where it's kind of beyond talking about that she's a great actress, that you're a little bored by her. You're like, all right, she's going to get an Oscar, but there's nothing exciting or fresh. It's like, okay, fine. It's almost just routine.
Yeah.
And I guess I like seeing more surprises and freshness to it.
Right. Well, maybe if the Academy gets shaken up a little bit, we'll see some more surprises in the future.
I hope so.
That'd be cool. All right. So the other films, we didn't really talk too much about Brooklyn. You said The Martian and Bridge of Spies, you have not seen yet. I will tell you that I personally did not like Bridge of Spies very much. I thought it was kind of a mess as far as a movie goes. It was not amusing, but like it kept my interest as a watch, but I would never consider it an Oscar movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, Spielberg is just that good a craftsman where you'll be visually engaged, but I think it's his storytelling instincts that really get him in trouble.
Well, I think that's the problem. I think the script was a mess, and they brought in the Coen brothers to like try and fix it. But there are at least 3 characters that play a major part in this story that have like less than 5 minutes of screen time. It's insane. It makes no sense to me. And this is just a vehicle for Tom Hanks to be Tom Hanks, and whatever. I love watching Tom Hanks act, but you can't just put somebody into a script and then say he's like a huge part of this, and then he gets like shipped on a bus for the rest of the movie until the end. Brooklyn, I thought was I actually really liked Brooklyn. It's not necessarily my type of movie. Mm-hmm. It's like a romance, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's exactly a romance, and a period piece. Mm-hmm. And the period, it being a period piece, I think is a lot of what saved it for me, because I really liked what they did with the trip from Ireland to America and meeting all these other Irish Americans and all that type of thing. And the romantic angle, whatever, I don't really care too much about that usually when I watch a movie, but that was good. Like, I liked their chemistry.
Yeah, the sense of history it imparted I thought was really engaging too.
Yeah.
The movie is set in the 50s, and it feels like it could have come from the 50s too, which I'm sure was intentionally by design.
Right.
Like, it's almost radical just how old-fashioned it is. Like, it doesn't take the creepy dark turn that you think it's in danger of taking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. I thought that was cool too. Like, where she goes back to Ireland, and then that whole thing I think is being set up so that you think she's just gonna stay there. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna ruin the movie. Don't listen to the. Everybody that listens to our podcast knows we're gonna ruin movies.
Spoiler alert! She goes back to Brooklyn.
So yeah, and then she just goes. She realizes that she loves her husband, who she left in Brooklyn, and goes back to Brooklyn. Like, it's not a big deal. It's just beautifully shot and beautifully crafted. There's good dialogue,
and even her turmoil's understandable. Like, she's probably 18, 20 years old, and she's already married to a dude, and it's like, why the fuck wouldn't you think about some other person now?
Exactly.
So she did a phenomenal job. Like, she was a really strong, well-written character.
She was. Well, the actress was amazing.
Yeah.
Just awesome portrayal. So that's Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. Did you see Spotlight?
We briefly mentioned Spotlight. Yeah, I saw Spotlight. Actually, Spotlight was really good. It was very heavy, dark material.
Absolutely.
But it was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a podcast on it, so if you want to hear my at-length thoughts about Spotlight, you can go there. But I do like the one failing of Spotlight, I would say, is that the 4th guy on the Spotlight team, the guy with the mustache, just didn't do anything. I kept waiting for him to like have a part in the movie, and he just didn't.
He's got that one scene, and maybe it's the fault of the casting. Obviously, you have these bigger names, and I think I'm blanking on his name, which is unfortunate, but I know he's a theater actor. But he's got that one great scene where he realizes his neighbor or someone in the neighborhood is a priest, so he's like, gets his kid away from there
Yeah.
and throws the newspaper on his door personally.
Puts the note on the refrigerator.
He's got a couple good scenes.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He does. But, like, as far as the overall plot goes, he doesn't really do anything. You know, like, which I didn't think he was a bad actor. I thought he did a fine job. And I think they should have given him more to work with. Maybe just a large part of the script got cut or something.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know how, obviously, any adaptation of a real-life incident, they're going to exaggerate or, like, finesse some facts. So whether or not that was his level of involvement that we got to see, the stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. He obviously doesn't get the lion's share of screen time like, say, Mark Ruffalo.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, I thought that everybody in that did a fine job.
It's not easy to portray investigative journalism after the fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the most exciting thing is going to the library to research names. But he made it work.
Did a very good job.
Yeah. The guy who wrote and directed it, Tom McCarthy, he's an actor who worked with David Simon on the 5th season of The Wire. Mm-hmm. And I think he gets some of that influence
absolutely.
in this work, too.
I could definitely
I know
see
David
that.
Simon loved this movie. This is right up his alley.
Oh, yeah. He's doing a new show now, too, isn't he?
He just did one a few months ago, Show Me a Hero, with Oscar Isaac. Amazing miniseries.
Nice.
Incredible.
That was the one about Yonkers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like very
tenement
recent
housing
history.
and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I would love to check that out, actually.
I guess really quickly, speaking of Oscar Isaac, that's another performer who probably could have got... Well, I don't know if he would have been nominated for Star Wars, but I thought he did a great job in Ex Machina.
You know what?
That role.
I still have to see Ex Machina.
So good.
But in Star Wars, I loved him. And then here's another one. He got shipped on a bus for half the movie. And so, like, he didn't have the screen time. Mm-hmm. I wish that he had... I think they're setting him up for a bigger part in the next movie.
Right.
He doesn't die. I ruined it.
Well, now I don't need to see it. No, he's a great actor.
But yeah, I think they're setting
Oscar
him up.
Isaac kick.
I think they're setting him up to be like maybe sort of a Han character in the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any other final thoughts on any of this stuff?
I'm really torn about watching the Oscars, actually. Like, I do want to see it to see what Chris Rock does.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying my personal boycott will affect anything.
Right.
But I don't know. I kind of be like, you should be held accountable. Not punish them by not viewing it, but I am torn whether or not I watch the Oscars. And I really shouldn't be, because I should probably have this attitude of fuck the Oscars. Because in general, they're more wrong than right in terms of who they pick.
Yeah.
Like, the list of people who've never gotten an Oscar is staggering. Like, the company includes Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, Orson Welles, Robert Altman.
Yeah.
And if you want to go foreign directors, Ingmar Bergman, Akira Kurosawa, just like some of the most prolific film artists who've really inspired the medium have never been graced with Oscar Gold, whatever that means.
Oh, I mean, I usually don't watch the Oscars. I probably will this year just because we're doing a special episode on them.
The curiosity factor gets to me, but in the end of the day, you know, it's fluff. Like, awarding art is a very weird thing to do in general.
You know what? That's absolutely right. And I've never really cared what they had to say about who was the best movie. I've always kind of had, I guess, my own favorite movies.
Right.
You know,
as everyone is wont to do.
Right. I don't care what a bunch of people that I've never met and never will meet are going to say.
I guess it's posterity that you think about. These are what people in the industry are considering works that are canon. Yeah. Works that will stand the test of time. And I don't know anybody that's still talking about $1 Million Baby or even The Artist.
True.
Which, The Artist was a fine movie, but Best Picture of that year, I don't know.
But they'll still show up on, you know, that list every time somebody looks up who won Oscars in, you know, for the last 50 years, you know?
I mean, it's helpful at trivia bar nights, so you got that going for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see, you know, kind of where... I'm looking forward to seeing some shifts in film.
Absolutely. And the fact that these dialogues are even happening is good.
Yeah.
Because people are aware, people are woke, and they will do what they can to implement the change and hopefully get people who are the gatekeepers to take notice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I think we're going to cut it off there. Morgan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Or for joining me. No one else is here. But, you know, the royal us.
What are you talking about? This room has like 20 people.
We're keeping them very quiet. Mm-hmm. It was an honor to have you on, and I hope to.
Thanks, man.
I hope to get you back. And
it would be my pleasure.
So this is going to be the end of the MOTSkers season. We're gonna sign off, and we'll see you guys next time.
This has been Bon Mots. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Music by Chris Morgan. Editing and engineering by Stephen Hermosa. This has been a Lost Signals production. All rights reserved.